The question is, how do you know when to have sex? When you've started dating someone.
Okay.
Without having that ruin the relationship if you have it too soon.
Well, right. What's on your mind? Like when you say, when do you have sex? What kind of situation comes to mind, or what do you mean by the question?
So I'm someone, I really enjoy sex, and I also understand that it can cloud my judgment on a person. And it can also, it can cloud my judgment on a person and how we relate. And I've noticed that when I've dated people, that there's usually 1 or 2 dates. And if it's going well and you feel this energy, there's usually some sexual tension, right? Or maybe,
especially with alcohol, especially with a couple of drinks.
And so 2 dates is not enough time for me to build the trust that I would like for me to have a really pleasurable sexual experience. And it's hard to then just keep going and ignore this sexual tension. And things do change after you have sex as well with someone. So I'm wondering how you honor this desire to sleep with someone and not totally mess up something, or use sex to pretend a relationship is something it's not. Because I've also been with people where you wake up after 3 months of great sex and you're like, who is this person? Like, why? And I'm not looking for a rule of like, after 3 dates is when you have sex, and like that makes sure it's okay. It's more just, I wonder.
That was my answer.
Okay.
I'll have to.
We'll have to do another tape.
Thanks for drawing board.
Give me some
We'll
time.
do another one, right? Yeah.
Like a few months ago, I went on a date, and a woman expressed to me that like how appalled she was by like the guy she was on a date, like on their first date. He asked if he could kiss her, and she's like, appalled. Okay, thing to ask someone on a first date if you want to kiss them.
I'm with you, yeah.
But if you're not feeling it, if you have the date, like, okay, the date went well. I think I like the guy. I'm not taking him off the list, but I don't feel enough emotional connection to him to have a really deep French kiss. I mean, I don't mind if he kisses my face or lips, but to get into that really deep kissing, I think for everybody it's different. Or perhaps if I had 3 or 4 drinks and I'm so drunk, and I think each situation is different, right?
That's very real. That's very real.
It's real.
Yeah. And do you want to have the regret the next morning? It's like, why did I do that? That's just my hormones. If you're okay with just using, we had enough alcohol in us, there was enough attraction, and I haven't had sex in a while, and intimacy, I'm gonna go there.
And then it gets me into this thought, I don't want to get too much off track, but living in the moment and just doing what feels right versus, oh gosh, if we sleep together on the first date, what does this mean moving forward? So I guess it's a sex thing, and then it's a part of me that I know loves to plan and control.
Like strategic.
Yeah, and I don't, the last thing I want sex to be is strategic. Like, that's not sexy. Doesn't do it for me. So, Percy, guidance, thoughts.
Thoughts? Sure, I have thoughts. How are you defining sex?
Great question. I would say the typical being naked and in bed.
How are you defining sex in that moment? So you're naked, you're in bed.
Yes. I would say naked and in bed is pretty, because even if there's not actual penetration or like anything, that's still a pretty vulnerable position. Yeah. So I guess I was really trying to think about the question when you asked. So I guess naked and in bed.
Okay. Let's see, we might want to break out the book. Well, so sexual intelligence. I think in terms of how we think about sex and how we define it, it affects how we think about, like, okay, when should we do what? So to give an example, so Marty Klein wrote
That's
this book.
The author of Sexual Intelligence.
The author of Sexual Intelligence.
Excellent book.
There was a survey as far as what people get out of sex. The two things where everything overlapped as far as sexual experience and what they get out of it and what they want out of it is closeness and pleasure. If reframing the question in terms of, okay, when should I have closeness and pleasure with this person? Does that switch how you're thinking about the whole thing?
It switches how I would think about it if I'm in a longer term relationship, because I know that I have had sex in longer term relationships that was trying to bring closeness where there wasn't. So when you put words to it rather than different words to it, it helps me rephrase it or think of it differently. For me, it's bringing up that maybe I don't feel closeness in other ways, and that I feel like I need to explore this to see like where I'm like rummaging for closeness, and I'm like, oh, this is something we can try for closeness and pleasure. Let's try this.
Right. And if you're thinking about what you really want, like what would be pleasurable closeness to you in that moment, is it necessarily being in bed with no clothes? Or is it something else that would bring about?
Sometimes it's feeling like we're sharing the same energy, or we're on the same wavelength.
How's that feel to you when that happens?
Oh, it's amazing. It's really special, and it's hard to keep, I think.
So
And it can change.
I have a bit of a theory on that. It's hard to keep the energy of what you experience from having sex. We had this discussion a while back. We were talking about the chakras: physical connection, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. So a lot of traditional dating, you don't really know that person at the spiritual level yet, or maybe you never will. But you have this physical attraction, which I think we should all have in terms of having a life partner, is we should be attracted to this person physically, because that's what creates the passion and the eroticism. And so you're attracted, so you're trying to, how would you call this, like satisfy the lower chakras, the sexual organs.
Okay.
And okay, I like the sex, all right, I want to see him again. Does he want to see me again? Is he in that space where he wants to go a little bit higher, develop the emotional connection, deeper connection, and let's see if we have similar intellectual interests. And then the spiritual connection, which very few people have, that's not even about the sex. Sex is just confirmation of that spiritual connection. It's so sacred up here.
I guess what I struggle with is there's this, and maybe I don't know where it's coming from, and maybe that's something worth exploring further, where this desire for sex comes from. I guess it's both. It's something I want and something I know for me is not pleasurable unless I have that unless I have that connection, emotional connection, which I was following comes after the sex.
Are you saying that it was linear?
I think it all depends on where you're at. Because let's say if you've known somebody for a while and you developed a friendship,
Yeah.
maybe they were with someone and you were partnered up, and then you just ended up, let's say, developing a friendship through work.
Yeah.
Work romances happen all the time. There's no sex in the way, or maybe some people, the sex gets in the way with a work affair. But let's say you did have the time and the space to develop the intellectual connection because you're working together, and then the emotional connection that's happening as you're doing the work together, and then you discover that you have a lot of the same values, and you just like the energy is swirling. You're like, oh my God, I'm attracted to this person and I want to have the sex, but I can't right now because I have a wife at home, and maybe that person is single, but it's like, no, I can't do this. I can't have an affair. So that's a different way of developing a relationship because sex is not really on the table. Whereas if you go on
as defined, sex defined in this way.
Is there another way you're other than?
Oh, for damn sure. Yeah.
All right.
Are you speaking the tantra way of?
You can see it as a tantra way. You can see it as a sexual intelligence sort of way. So to give you an example, and it comes up because I was, not too long ago having a conversation with someone. Courageous vulnerability is basically you're saying, yeah, there's a part of me, or I feel like I would like, just you're having a conversation and, sex somehow creeps its way into the conversation. Let's say that happens. Is that right? That never happens. But let's say hypothetically it did. Talking to someone in a dance club, a person that I had just met, sex comes into the conversation. I'm not sure how it does, but it somehow does. This person is like, I find you really attractive. I don't know you well enough, but I think it would be kind of fun for us to get sexual, but I don't know you well enough yet. And it's like, well, cool. And so what's happening inside of me is like, yeah, I'm not thinking about sex as being in the bed naked. I'm thinking about it as pleasure and closeness. So the next question is, if you did know me well enough, what would you want to do?
Wow, and
and it was a hot conversation, and it was verbal sex.
Oh, interesting.
We just like really got hot and horny together. It wasn't necessarily about being in bed naked. We definitely we were definitely fucking. Like it was just
Mentally,
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And that felt very satisfying because that was sex in that moment. What sex was for us was pleasure and closeness.
Wow.
Right?
So she validated you. I see you. I'm attracted to you.
Mm-hmm.
Doing
We
the
can't
same.
have sex in this way yet, which is totally fine. We don't have to have sex in that way. We can have sex in a lot of different ways.
It's almost like having phone sex.
It's like having phone sex, except having the person right in front of you,
Right.
which is even better.
Then what happened with this person? Did you date?
No, we didn't have to. Like it was like I don't even think we exchanged phone numbers. Like it was
So
just
nothing
a hot.
happened
It was just a hot experience.
Wow.
Like we probably could have if we wanted to take it further, but it was just like in that moment. I think it's like the stuff that happens in nightclubs. You know, it's just like I see something, go dance on the dance floor. You know, she goes somewhere else, and it's just like that's great. But we shared that moment together.
It's beautiful.
And it was a beautiful moment, like no regrets. Neither of us felt like we went too far. Both of us felt like we got what we wanted in that situation. It was nice. That is getting exactly what we want from sex, which is, you know, closeness and pleasure. And it just looked different than two people in bed naked at that point. It happened to look different. It felt for damn sure like the same thing, and it was some great sex.
Mental sex.
Sex is sex. Like it was closeness and pleasure. That's what we had.
And so many people have, especially in long-term relationships, have sex without closeness or pleasure.
Oh, so many people have like physical, what people would call sex. So many people were in the bed naked without closeness
Yes.
and without pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not gonna ask you any further follow-up
No,
questions
it's
about
so
that.
true. I love the language you used, and I'm definitely going to be retraining my brain with that.